up on global business. Dynamic alliance. China and Colombia elevate relations to strategic partnership, boosting trade and cooperation prospects. Investment surge. China's non-financial outbound investment surges by 11.8% year-on-year, fostering global economic ties. Market Watch. Global investors are watching the ECB interest rate decision and U.S. GDP data for fresh market cues. From CGTN headquarters here in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Michelle Vandenberg. President Xi Jinping has held talks with visiting Colombian President Gustavo Petro. Xi welcomed Petro, noting he was the first foreign leader Xi has met with since the recent Belt and Road Forum. Xi said China-Colombia ties have grown over the past 43 years since establishing relations, with strong cooperation across various fields. He announced the elevation of bilateral ties to a strategic partnership and expressed willingness to work with Petro to benefit both peoples and inject positive energy into world peace and development. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties, bilateral relations between China and Colombia have developed steadily, with increasing cooperation in business and trade. China is the second largest trading partner of Colombia so far in 2023. According to the China Administration of Customs, in 2022, the total volume of bilateral trade reached over $22.6 billion, up 13.4% on a yearly basis. Among them, China's exports stood at $15.6 billion, up 8.7% year-on-year, and its imports gained over 25% from the previous year to over $7 billion. China exports technological and chemical goods and vehicles to Colombia and imports crude oil, leather, and metal ores. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro is in China this week with several topics in his agenda. Many Colombians are paying close attention to the visit, hoping for the continued expansion of business opportunities with China, especially in sectors like tourism. Have a look.
Colombian Miguel González got to know China through academia. Through his university here in Bogotá, he studied in China for a year and a half, an experience that changed his life. González explains that few Colombians have the possibility to visit the Asia giant because of how far away it is. That is why González says tourism is usually related to a business opportunity or studies abroad.
The culture of China is of great interest. Even if people go to do business, they want to see the Great Wall of China and the development in Shanghai. The centuries-old history and the modern history of China is of great interest.
In 2013, González and his partner began an agency to help facilitate travel and business between China and Latin America. They want to help make travel easier so that language and cultures aren't a barrier to new experiences. Both Colombia and China are on a quest to deepen economic and political relations. Colombian President Gustavo Petro's visit to China this October is just one example of China's growing influence in Latin America. Growth in tourism is expected to be part of this expanding relationship. The Colombian and Chinese Chamber of Commerce says private sectors such as hotels, airlines, and travel agencies are exploring expansion opportunities that were occurring before the COVID-19 pandemic.
A topic that was being talked about before the pandemic was alliances with Chinese airlines, like Air China, so that there can be maybe a direct flight with strategic stops between the two countries. That is a topic that could be taken up again, maybe with the president's visit, or maybe with longer technical visits next year.
The interest goes both ways, as Colombia has also recently launched tourism campaigns in China, with the hope of attracting tourists who have a whole new world to discover in South America. González and his team have hosted a number of Chinese tourists who visited Colombia on business trips. They were surprised and delighted by the biodiversity and landscapes that awaited them.
Colombia was closed off for many years from tourism, not because of a pandemic, but because of security reasons in the country. So the Chinese are surprised by the biodiversity, the people and the experiences, like the street festivals in Cali or the natural wonders outside of Medellin.
Michelle Begues, CGTN, Bogotá, Colombia.
Now, for more insights on bilateral trade prospects between China and Colombia, we're joined by Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. So, Mr. Zhou, what positive influence does the Colombian president's visit to China have on bilateral relations and trade and economic cooperations?
We know that after 4 years that the world has changed a lot from last time that we signed some agreements between us. There are already 4 years. So this visit has brought the president and through his eyes to let the Colombia's people know what China is really look like. And through his eyes, we also see that this visit has included many opportunities to discuss the issues not only from the government, but also with the commercials and with the companies. I think it's a really important way for them to know more about China from the development, and we can try to improve the security situation by the development of the economy. And that is definitely good for the economic and the investment cooperation also, which has been included in the agreements.
And now with the elevated strategic partnership and this bilateral agreements and declarations in focus, what economic and trade cooperation prospects are emerging for China and Colombia?
Actually, we see there are so many areas covered in the agreements. After improved in our strategic partners, we are not only trying to do the business just based on their private sector's view. We are trying to navigate the cooperation between our two countries. I think that cooperation includes the infrastructure, includes the trade, investment, and also something to do with climate change. Colombia is a country with a lot of resources and also our development or more balanced development of the manufacturing and agriculture. So I think that we have more opportunities to import the agricultural products from Colombia and also export some of our services, like in the engineering there, to help them to improve the infrastructure connectivities.
Yeah, I love Colombia coffees. Also looking forward, how do you see future cooperation between the two countries?
We know that Colombia is the only country in the South America that's connecting two oceans, including the Pacific and also Atlantic. So it is much possible for us to improve the cross-oceans trade through Colombia. So I think it is a lot of possibilities that we are trying to integrate the different resources in different regions to improve the sustainable cooperation. And there are also many new areas like the digital economy, the green economy. We can also borrow and learn some of the experience of Colombia's on the biodiversity protection. And that is definitely good for the climate change challenge to resolve this problem.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate your time. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. Chinese Premier Li Qiang participated in the 22nd meeting of the Council of Heads of Government of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. During his address, Li reiterated China's dedication to the SCO's principles and highlighted the significance of regional decision-making, free from external interference. Looking forward, he urged deeper cooperation across 4 key areas, emphasizing regional security and economic recovery, advancing the Belt and Road Initiative, and enhancing people-to-people exchanges. The meeting saw the participation of high-level representatives from member states, including Kazakhstan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, as well as representatives from several observer nations. Multiple cooperation agreements and resolutions were approved during the session. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is scheduled to arrive in Washington, D.C. on Thursday for a 3-day visit. The Foreign Ministry says Wang will hold talks with high-level U.S. officials on China-U.S. ties, as well as international and regional issues of common concern. The two sides are looking to cooperate on preventing the bloodshed between Hamas and Israel from escalating into a wider regional conflict. Foreign Minister Wang Yi is being hosted by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who addressed the United Nations Security Council earlier this week. The Great Wall Climate Dialogue wrapped up in Beijing on Thursday with calls for more cooperation between China and the United States to combat the effects of climate change. The meeting brought together China's Minister of Ecology and Environment, provincial leaders, and the governor of the U.S. state of California, Gavin Newsom. Dong Xue has more.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom called for stronger climate collaboration between Beijing and Washington.
China and the United States represent anywhere from 41 to 44% of the world's emissions. We're never going to address the issue of climate change on this planet unless the United States and China work more collaboratively together.
At the Great Wall Climate Dialogue, he put that message to China's Minister of Ecology and Environment, Huang Renqiu, and provincial leaders. Minister Huang Renqiu echoed the need for stronger collaboration. Huang again reiterated Beijing's aim of reaching its carbon emissions peak in 2030 and carbon neutrality in 2060, adding that climate cooperation is a vital component of China's relationship with the United States.
China and the U.S. started cooperation on environment and climate in the 1980s, and it's an important part of the relations. The two heads of state issued 3 joint statements on climate change, making historic contributions to the implementation of the Paris Agreement.
Newsom highlighted that California is on the front lines of climate change, saying the hots are getting a lot hotter. He said the state also experienced record-breaking floods this year, and that's why he sees a great sense of urgency, not just to identify problems, but to put concrete changes into action. Chinese President Xi Jinping told Gavin Newsom yesterday that he sees potential for collaboration with the U.S. on green development, adding that it is possible for the two countries to strengthen cooperation in areas like green development as well as climate change, and to make it a new height in the development of China-U.S. relations. Echoing the positive tone, the governor of California suggested climate cooperation is one way to help improve bilateral ties. Dong Xue, CGTN, Beijing.
You're watching Global Business, still to come. China's non-financial outbound investment surges by 11.8% year-on-year, fostering global economic ties.
Join us in San Francisco on November 14th through 16th for the most influential meeting of the world's leaders and business executives in the Asia Pacific. The APEC CEO Summit 2023 will focus on creating economic opportunity. The summit will promote sustainability, inclusion, resilience, and innovation across the Asia Pacific. Don't miss your chance to be part of the conversation. Request your invitation at apecceosummit2023.com.
China's outbound investment maintained its growth momentum in the first 9 months of this year, according to official data. Non-financial outbound direct investment from China increased by nearly 12%, reaching $96 billion from January to September. In yuan terms, outbound direct investment surged by over 18%, surpassing 670 billion yuan during this period. Notably, Chinese enterprises' outbound investment in Belt and Road partner countries exceeded $23 billion, marking a year-on-year increase of over 20%. China's outbound direct investment continued to hold a prominent position globally, with a total ODI of $160 billion last year, ranking second worldwide. Overseas buyers from more than 200 countries and regions have attended the ongoing Canton Fair in South China's city of Guangzhou. Seen as a barometer for the country's foreign trade, this edition of the biannual event is already exceeding the spring session. CGTN's Omar Khan caught up with attendees to find out what they're looking out for.
Face-to-face is very important in our business because they have to feel it, they have to check the technology by themselves. They have to, when you see the product, they have many questions to ask. This is how we develop the trust together, build better products. So yeah, Canton Fair face-to-face very important to us.
This is arguably the most important factor when it comes to doing business at the Canton Fair. And in the 134th edition of the event, domestic companies are thrilled to see buyers coming back to South China to seek out the latest products.
Our customers are from Europe, from North America. I think you can find us anywhere on the website, on TikTok, not WeChat, but yeah, on WeChat, on Facebook, everywhere you can find us. Yeah, we have different dealers under different OEM names, but you can find our products very easily everywhere in the world.
Serving global consumers is the goal of many of the companies here at the event. The good news for them is that traditional buyers from the US and EU are seeing a near 9% increase in attendance compared to the spring session.
Yeah, I can agree more. To see something and touch something with your hands makes all the difference, quality-wise, but more importantly, the connections and relationships you build with the suppliers here is most important. I'm always amazed going back to the booths that we always buy from. They always remember me, which is great. But yeah, it's comfortable here. I always feel welcome.
And though the world's oldest trade fair sees domestic companies exporting their products to the global market, many of them include designers, technologies, and materials from around the world.
We are the company that's going to explore the global market, so we will do research of the whole industry. So we get the best designer from Italy, and we get the best production machine from Germany and Italy. Okay, we get it in China, and with our technology to connect it together, and also provide we use the advantage of the supply chain in China, so we can give the client the best design.
And as the second phase of the Canton Fair continues, more milestones are being set. As 150,000 overseas buyers have taken part so far, a 50% increase compared to earlier this year. Omar Khan, CGTN, Guangzhou.
Chinese car maker BYD is making its first ever appearance at the Japan Mobility Show this week. The vehicle exhibition is a unique chance for manufacturers to show off their newest products and technology. Our Chris Gilbert reports.
This is a crucial moment, not just for Japanese manufacturers, but those from Europe and China as well. At this, the first Tokyo Mobility Show in 4 years, and the first ever under that name, as the industry pivots to see itself as increasingly and progressively environmentally friendly. But while companies like Toyota may be world leaders when it comes to global sales, Japanese companies are in fact lagging most other countries and most other manufacturers when it comes to actually adopting environmentally friendly technology such as EV batteries and new energy systems. And here at the Expo, companies like BMW and Mercedes from Europe, and of course BYD from China, are demonstrating products that are already in production, while Japanese companies are mostly showing concepts for products that they want to put into production in the future. And it's a big day particularly for BYD, a big event for BYD. They are the first ever Chinese company to demonstrate their products at the Tokyo Mobility Show.
BYD started as a battery company, so we make strong batteries with a long life. They're low cost but high quality. Batteries are at the heart of EV, and ours are what make us different from other companies in Japan.
Well, BYD has been in Japan for about 1.5 years now, and it has big aspirations for the Japanese market. Meanwhile, Japanese companies are struggling offshore, particularly in the Chinese market, where Mitsubishi is reportedly shutting up shop altogether. However, this is a big event for them. It is their chance to bounce back with new model SUVs, pickup trucks and urban vehicles, updates on classic models like Toyota's Century and Crown models, as these companies look to attract new markets and pivot to their vision of an environmentally friendly future. Chris Gilbert, CGTN in Tokyo.
You're watching Global Business, still to come. Global investors are watching the ECB interest rate decision and U.S. GDP data for fresh market cues.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
The European Central Bank maintained its record high interest rate of 4% on Thursday, marking a halt in a 15-month streak of rate hikes. The ECB had raised rates in each of its past 10 meetings as part of efforts to combat inflation. Policymakers reiterated that keeping borrowing costs at this level for an extended period would significantly contribute to achieving the 2% CPI target. However, there are concerns that the economy may have slowed to the extent that a recession might be underway, which is likely to shift the focus towards how long interest rates should remain at this historic highs. The U.S. economy experienced its most robust growth in nearly 2 years during the third quarter of this year, driven by increased wages resulting from a tight labor market, which has in turn boosted consumer spending. The GDP for the third quarter expanded at an annual rate of 4.9%, surpassing market forecasts and marking a significant rise from the 2.1% growth in the second quarter. Strong consumer spending, increased inventories, growing exports, residential investment, and government expenditure helped boost growth. Retail sales delivered an upside surprise for September in the U.S., with consumers selling out more on a broad range of categories. One of the biggest drivers of the gains was vehicle sales. CGTN's Karina Mitchell reports on consumer willingness to invest in a new ride. Take a look.
While the Federal Reserve continues to try to put the brakes on high inflation, based on recent retail sales data, many consumers aren't along for the ride.
Seems like the death of the U.S. consumer has been greatly exaggerated based on the results.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think that consumer spending has been remarkably resilient, especially for experiences, but also for things like car sales. That's kind of an interesting twist here because the supply chain has gotten a lot better.
Overall in the U.S., sales of motor vehicles continue to accelerate, rising 1% in September from the previous month. And for the third quarter, global automakers, including General Motors, Toyota, and Kia, recorded a rise in new vehicles sold to American consumers. According to Edmunds, an online auto data resource, one reason for the upswing is because some consumers who held off buying a new vehicle during the COVID-19 pandemic now need one despite rising costs and tougher financing. Lauren Waldrop says business has been brisk at the Porsche dealership she manages in Pennsylvania all summer long, and she says she isn't expecting a slowdown anytime soon.
We had a great September. September was actually our second best month volume-wise of the year. So I don't like to say that we're recession-proof because obviously, you know, we see all the news out there and it's a little bit doomsday sometimes where we're all expecting the other shoe to drop. But we have been extremely fortunate that we have not seen consumers turning away.
Rossman is less optimistic when it comes to overall retail sales. He believes they'll climb only modestly this holiday season compared to last year as consumers try to ride out elevated interest rates.
I don't see consumer spending falling off a cliff, but I don't think it'll be a blockbuster at holiday season either.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk shares that sentiment. He painted a gloomy sales outlook after delivering weak third quarter results, adding buyers are now feeling the pressure of higher rates. That as the overall average interest rate for new and used car loans now stands at the highest level since 2007. And as an ongoing strike by members of the United Auto Workers Union drags on, it could potentially threaten supply chains. Still, Waldrop says she's not concerned, despite Porsche's slower push into the competitive EV market.
The data is there. The customers are still shopping. They're still walking into the showroom every day. They're impressed with the product. They see value, and they're ready to spend the money.
Karina Mitchell, CGTN, New York.
With inflation pushing up the cost of everything from puppy chow to canine costumes, owners are eager to sniff out cheaper deals for their furry friends. And while the United States still remains the country with the most spoiled pets in the world, owners are finding it increasingly more difficult to spoil them. CGTN's Jody Jacobs reports from New York.
It's that colorful time of the year again. The annual Pooches Parade in Tompkins Square here in New York City. Despite a few showers, dogs and their owners strutted their costumes, some more lavish than others. From a paw-powered taxi, an extraterrestrial canine, and an owner just thinking outside the box. But the rough economic times and inflation are not easy for pet owners. Prices in some cases fetching record highs, making it difficult for consumers to balance their budgets, something these dog lovers know all too well about.
It's so expensive to go to the vet now. I mean, you go in for a visit and it's going to be at least $250, maybe even $1,000, you know. So yeah, it's getting really expensive to have a pet.
Especially medical, you know, it's very expensive. But she has insurance, so it's like half and half. But it's very expensive to have a pup. I don't know how people can have 2, 3, 4.
It's tough. Doggy daycare went up quite a bit this year.
And one professor agrees. Holding on to a pet these days, he says, has become increasingly difficult.
This is definitely a new area of concern that's emerged where people have become, you know, with the economic times becoming increasingly more difficult, people have been questioning and trying to figure out how do they balance their own personal spending and their needs with the needs of their pets. And I think that that's one of the things that in the current economic climate is different than issues that we've seen in past climates, that there hasn't been that same level of concern during previous economic downturns that people are talking about right now.
But despite consumers barking at high prices, pets in the United States are still the most spoiled animals in the world, with their owners spending close to $137 billion last year, more than any other country. Americans adore their pets and will go to great lengths to ensure they live a life of luxury and comfort.
We spare no expense for him.
A recent survey by Forbes lists New York as one of the top states with the most spoiled dogs. 40% of New Yorkers say they spend more money spoiling their fabulous friends than spoiling their significant other. And if push comes to shove, they say they'll go the extra mile, even though it's not a walk in the park. Jody Jacobs, CGTN, New York.
And that will do it with this edition of Global Business. I'm Michelle Vandenberg in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.